Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rawkode Live. I am your host, Rawkode. Today we are taking a look at Litestream. It is a replicated SQLite with a whole bunch of really cool use cases that we're going to explore a little bit today with its creator and founder. Before we get started, there is just a little bit of housekeeping. First, please subscribe to the channel and also remember to click the thumb on the video. This will do magic things with YouTube's algorithm, which will help other people find this content, which is which is the goal here, right? We want to provide cloud native learning resources for us all to learn this vast landscape together. Also, we've got a Discord server available at rawkode.chat. It's a really great place to come and ask questions, ask for new different episodes on new technologies, and generally just chat Kubernetes, cloud native, Go, and a whole bunch of other things. So come and join us. Great place to hang out. That's it. Boring bit done. Now we can get started with today's session, and for that I am joined by Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is the creator of Litestream. Hey mate, how is it going?
Hey, good. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Do you want to just take a moment and give us the TLDR on Ben Johnson?
Yeah, I am a Go developer. I've been doing it for 8 years now, and I kind of always work in the world of databases for that time. And I wrote BoltDB. That's kind of another open source project I've done in the past. Just kind of a key value store that got pretty popular. It's actually in Kubernetes itself as part of etcd. And then I don't know, just played around with a bunch of different open source projects over the years. And then one thing that I've always kind of loved was just like that, like embedded databases. Like they're so easy to use, like kind of like just get up and running. There's not a lot of dependency issues. They're easy to debug typically, but I wanted kind of that SQL support, but I also wanted to kind of make it kind of more robust and like production ready. So that's kind of how I came down the Litestream path. So yeah, I've been working on Litestream for the last, it's kind of been going on since the last maybe year or two, just trying to figure out the ins and outs of SQLite and figuring out how I can get this all to kind of work and different iterations and just trying to simplify it as much as possible.
Nice. Does it take a special kind of person to work in databases? Like, these now worked on numerous that I'm aware of, and like they must be like the hardest thing in the world to be working on. Like, do you just like pain? Is that it?
Yeah, it's just masochism, really. It's weird. It's kind of a weird thing. Like other people that I work with that work in databases, they always say like, I am going back to doing just like web apps. Like I'm doing something simple next time. And we always kind of come back to databases. But like you think it's really difficult, but it's actually like, it's like a smaller problem space. Like typically you only work you work with bytes and like it's very low level. Whereas, I used to work in like web apps and front ends, and that's all like, you got 4 different browsers to work in and different, kind of things that, CSS problems. Like I get in CSS now and I get lost. So it's one of those things that it seems really difficult from the outside, but it just depends on where you're coming from, really.
I guess it all comes down to where you want to focus your expertise and your domains, and like I guess every other domain is going to appear challenging at that. I suffer the same. Like I tried to write CSS a whole bunch of times. I've rewritten my blog 14,000 times in the last month, and CSS is always the thing that trips me up. It's hard, but yeah. So it's cool that you're always working on databases. Maybe you can kind of then tell us what drew you to SQLite.
Sure, yeah. I think as far as like SQLite's kind of known for just being super rock hard, stable. Like they put it in airplanes, they put it in all kinds of devices, and it just kind of works everywhere. Um, the team behind it is just super chill and laid back. They're not always out, on social media like touting how amazing they are and whatever stuff. It's kind of like they're just, I feel like people that are just like really database nerds, like, or they don't do all the marketing fluff. I feel like that's kind of a good sign. So as far as SQLite, like it's one of the few embedded databases that just kind of is ubiquitous and has SQL support, like strong SQL support. So you can do a lot of things you can do in something like Postgres, where you get JSON support, you get like CTEs, like the recursive queries you can do in there, windowing, you get all kinds of functionality. It's kind of surprising for just a single small embedded database. So that's kind of what drew me there.
Yeah, I think it was maybe shortly after your Livestream announcement. It kind of got me thinking, like I'd never considered, and I think it's just my own, the way that I've worked with SQLite over the years, it's always been used for testing environments and never really considered
Mm-hmm.
shipping it to prod. And I threw the question to Twitter, being like,
Mm-hmm.
when I say SQLite, what do you think of? Like production, testing, embedded, and stuff like that. And there were a lot of
Mm-hmm.
production SQLite people that were like, yeah, like definitely. And I think it was just my own mindset just wasn't there. And now I'm having to reevaluate that. So is that something
Yeah.
that you do yourself or you see with other people, that SQLite is a strong contender for a production database?
Yeah, honestly, I'm always surprised by how many people out there actually use it, and just and it's just running stuff all over the world. And there's kind of a range of different applications even before Lightstream that you could use SQLite for a production database. Like if you can do hourly or daily backups with your data, and like that window of data loss isn't going to tank your company or your organization or whatever you're doing, like that's a great approach. Just a simple replication. They're simple backups. So I think there's a lot of ways you can use it and still get a lot out of it. And it reduces a lot of the ops overhead. So if you're not an ops person, like I'm not a big ops person, I think it goes a long way for that too.
Okay. So maybe we can kind of pivot over to Lightstream then. And like, what does Lightstream bring to the SQLite world?
Sure, yeah. So Lightstream, it's a single file on your database on your disk, and if you're running your application and then it just dies suddenly, your disks crash, and you lose all your data, that sucks. And hopefully you have a backup. But the problem with historical backup solutions for SQLite is they are kind of a big snapshot. So you have to run them every hour, every day, something like that. So you get this huge window of data loss that doesn't work for a lot of people. So what Lightstream does is it kind of takes the changes that are written to SQLite and then batches them up every second and ships them up to S3 or some other replica.
So that
So it's
means,
go ahead.
I was going to go, so does that mean then if I'm running Lightstream against my SQLite database that in an ideal world, I'm only ever going to lose 1 second in the event that my application crashes or the file system has a corruption or anything like that?
Yeah. So ideally, it's 1 second of data loss. You also get other benefits too, where if you did a drop table on or a bunch of drop tables on your database and lost a bunch of data or corrupted it somehow, just through like user error, you can actually replay the database back into a previous point in time, so you can kind of recover from those scenarios as well.
I
So you
actually,
get a bunch of cool little. Oh, go ahead.
I had no idea that point in time was an option when you hook up Lightstream. I guess that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. I think you've got some slides to talk about how this actually works under the hood. Do you want to pop them up and we can
Sure.
run
Yeah, I
through
can pop
that?
those up.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
indeed.
Cool. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, yep, you are live. Go for it.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, Lightstream. Streaming replication for SQLite. Um, and just kind of, this is how SQLite works internally mostly. And then you can kind of see how Lightstream kind of attaches onto that. So SQLite, and honestly, like most databases, honestly, it's kind of ridiculous when you hear comparisons of like SQLite to like maybe MySQL is faster or Postgres is faster. Like they're all going to be just B trees stored on your disk. Like they're mostly kind of structured the same. They have a couple different features, but you're not going to get like wildly different performance from SQLite versus Postgres or whatnot. So this is what a table kind of looks like on disk, or it kind of looks like logically. You have kind of a root node and then it branches out. And then at the very bottom, you have leaf nodes, which is where your actual data is stored. But all these different um, parts of your data or chunks of data are all stored in these pages, which are usually about 4 kilobytes. And they're structured as a B tree. So what happens, this is kind of a busy slide here. So on the right side, there's the logical representation, where you have this tree of how your data is stored on disk, but that actually gets stored as just a sequential list of pages, and they kind of reference each other, but they're all these 4 kilobyte blocks. That's kind of the important thing to know, and they're all stored in this single database file. So when you make a change to SQLite, it has a couple different modes it can work in. Lightstream only works when you're in SQLite's wall mode, which is usually the kind of the recommended one to use anyway. instead of overwriting the page on disk, it'll actually write it. It'll append it to another file called the write-ahead log, and that write-ahead log actually kind of just it references to the pages on the database file. So in this example, we have a database file that has pages 0 through 8, and then if we make a change to something on page 3, it'll copy, or it'll write the whole page 3 to the wall file, and then we make a change to page 1, and yeah, no, you can't see my cursor. So if it makes a change to page 1, it'll append that on, and then if it makes another change to page 3, it'll append that on. So it kind of has this this layering of the wall file on top of the database file, kind of while it's running. Not sure if that makes sense. That's kind of how a lot of databases work. So eventually, this wall file gets bigger and bigger, and it'll do something called checkpointing, where checkpointing moves all those pages back into the main database file and overwrites everything, or all those change pages, and then it'll kind of clear out those pages on the wall file, and it'll restart from the beginning. So it's basically kind of like a circular buffer, where it'll kind of fill it up and then restart from the beginning and just kind of keep going in a circle. So what Litestream does is we kind of unroll those restarts of the wall file. So your first wall file gets written out, and when it restarts, Litestream basically is copying those wall pages to a kind of staging area. And then once it restarts, it'll start a new wall file with those new pages. So it kind of incrementally keeps track of all new writes to the wall, even though the wall kind of gets restarted and reused. So then we have the staging area with Litestream, and we start shipping out those chunks of the wall out to either an S3 bucket. We can do Azure. We can do Google Cloud Storage. We can do you do NFS over like a mount. You can do SFTP, and all kinds of different little replica destinations you can go to. And effectively, once you ship them out there, if you want to recreate the state of your database, we just pull down a snapshot, which is kind of your whole database at a certain point in time, and then replay all the wall pages that occurred after that up to a certain point in time. So that's kind of the basics of how that works. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah.
So I know it gets a little technical and nerdy with the some of the database pages and terminology, but kind of really the underlying structure is just kind of this append-only set of data that Litestream keeps track of, and it's all those wall page changes.
So it kind of reminds, I don't know if you're familiar with event sourcing, but it's a really cool architecture that I've experimented with over the years, and it kind of feels like that. I never really correlated that to write-ahead logs in general, but maybe that is a analogy.
Yeah, that's a decent analogy. I haven't never actually built anything with event sourcing, but I know what you're talking about. I kind of think of it also like Kafka is pretty similar, where it has this kind of append-only set of events. You can replay all those events and get the same final state. So, yeah, very similar.
So, but based on what you just showed, is there I mean, Litestream is doing really what SQLite is doing as well, which is it's right into the wall and then doing the checkpoints and the snapshotting. Does Litestream just forgo the checkpoints and always stores the different walls and the different iterations, or do you actually merge them at some point? I'm wondering how far back in time does the point in time recovery go with Litestream?
Sure, yeah. So you can yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. So what Litestream does is it has kind of a retention policy on it. So by default, it's about 24 hours, and then it'll do a new snapshot and kind of start from there with the wall again. And you can configure that to snapshot more often, and then retain longer. So if you want to retain, for 7 days and maybe do a snapshot every day or every hour, you can do that. So your point in time recovery is however long that retention period is.
Got it.
And if you have stuff like S3, the way that AWS really makes money is kind of when you download files, but for replication, you really just upload files. So it's actually super cheap to replicate up to S3, which is great.
Yeah. Plus it supports, is it any SG compatible API, or is it like a subset that you've kind of just tested it against?
So it's any S3 compatible API. The only caveat I would say is that it did not work on Google Cloud Storage, which has compatible API because it wasn't that compatible. But we added native support in the last version, so it's
Oh, nice.
works on there in Azure as well.
Awesome. All right. Your question is, can you say more about why Lightstream unrolls the wall pages at checkpoint time? Wouldn't you just need the most recent wall pages plus a snapshot to replay or build the database? Does that make sense to you?
Let me think. So it's, would you only need the most recent wall pages plus a snapshot to replay it? So it doesn't keep, yeah, you could keep a unique set of pages, but I think that'd be difficult to track over time. Kind of doing the unroll and pushing up to S3 makes everything immutable, which kind of simplifies a lot of pieces too. We're not trying to merge pages together. If I understand your question correctly, you could technically merge those, but yeah, that could be a future feature.
All right, nice, thank you. So is it fair to say then that the recovery time with Lightstream is pretty fast, depending on the size of your database, of course? I'm assuming that you're just pulling down the snapshot, the wall, replaying it, and then your application is up and running again, right?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on kind of your length of time from your snapshot to where you want to replay to and how many pages you have. It does pull down the individual files in parallel. So it tries to fill up the pipe, your bandwidth, getting those down. And then the actual replays of the walls is pretty fast depending on your disk, but it's literally just copying 4K pages from one file to another. So it's nothing too crazy.
Nice. And I hadn't really thought about the drop table scenario. I mean, I think we've all done it at some point in our careers, I would imagine. But being able to have that point in time recovery to revert that would be very, very cool. Almost a super
very nice.
I wish I'd had that at various points in my career. So awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to share on Lightstream before we get hands on? Did we touch on all the major bits there?
Yeah, I'd say that that's all the major bits. One thing I would say, as far as some kind of some feature work that's kind of coming up, there's stuff we're looking at around doing live replications, so you can have multiple read replicas. So if you want to start growing out your kind of a cluster of SQLite applications, you can scale your reads for that. There's work being done around looking at encryption, so you can replicate up to an untrusted data store replica destination. Things like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming.
Awesome. All right. I believe you've got a Slack channel and stuff as well, so we can drop links to that in the chat and people can get involved as well. Let me pull up my screen share just now. So this is the Lightstream homepage. It is available at lightstream.io. And today we're just going to kind of run through the getting started guide to give you all an idea of how you can start using Lightstream for yourselves. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop them into the comments and we will do our best to get them answered. Now, you've already watched me do this once before. You said that was a lot of fun, right?
You did a great job. I was impressed. You got K3S up.
Backed up. It was good fun. I really enjoyed working on that. Actually. All right, I'm going to jump ahead first and just get a Menio running and a Docker container. So this is the SG compatibility. Menio we can just run locally without ever having to speak to Amazon S3, which I am a big fan of. Really cool software.
This used to use the AWS S3 for the getting started, and it's just very confusing to anyone that's never set up IAM accounts and AWS buckets and all that stuff. So
it's definitely one of the big challenges. I mean, I have set up IAM buckets and roles and groups and all this before, but it's still complicated.
You do one wrong thing and you gotta spend half an hour to figure out what you did.
Super painful. I do not recommend it. Oh wow, was this here last time? I don't remember a tap.
Yeah. You got a tap on there now.
Fancy. All right, let's split this terminal. I'm obviously just going to be learning stuff today. I didn't know you could do brew install and then the tap and then the package name. Does that automatically do the brew tap for me?
Yeah, it automatically hooks it up. I can't remember who told me about that, but I used to have the whole instruction of the tap and you do this and update brew, but it's great. Just one line.
Awesome. Well, as long as I keep learning stuff like this, I'm a happy person. So is this compiling it from source? Or is this just because I bricked my machine last week and it now wants me to do loads of silly stuff that I haven't done in a while? Let's find out.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. That's weird. It shouldn't be building anything. It should just be pulling down the binary.
Yeah. It's just my machine. I said this to you prior, but
the dreaded Xcode.
Share my stupidity with the audience. Is that I installed the macOS 12 really early developer beta last week, and nothing on my machine worked, and I had to revert everything back to the start. So yeah, there are going to be loads of these little things over the next couple of weeks, I would imagine. But I guess I could always just grab the binary from GitHub.
Got a fast connection at least. That's good.
I do. I got fiber with my ISP recently, and it's
nice.
Pretty solid. Yeah, I'll grab the binary just now.
Yeah, that works. Actually, pick out the .io at the top.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of different support for different operating systems and architectures too. So we have.
You feeling brave? Will I go with the alpha?
No, don't do that. There's some refactoring going on for .4, but
wow, you build for a lot.
Yeah, we got Mac, Linux, we got Windows support on there, OpenBSD. We do a bunch of different ARM chip versions too. So you can go all the way down to what are they called? Raspberry Pi Zeros.
Yeah,
those tiny little $5 ones. You can run Litestream on there if you want.
That's pretty nice. Okay, let's see. What did I grab there? Litestream, zip, chmod. All right, there we go. I'll just let Xcode do its thing in the background.
Okay.
And I'll get the BrewTap version another day. But it's nice that exists. I don't know if I missed that or if I've just forgotten that I used it. I'm pretty sure I downloaded the binary last time. But BrewTaps are different.
Yeah, I think it's been there for a little while.
Especially with the Linux support now, which I haven't used a great deal because I'm an Arch user, so I use Arch for pretty much everything. But Brew Linux is pretty cool. All right, Livestream. We got Minio. We got our credentials without any IAM policies, Minio admin and Minio admin. So I think we are probably good to get started. 7 minutes now. That was a minute a second ago. All right. Okay. So we should be able to browse to Minio on a web interface. I guess I'll just need to create a bucket.
Yeah, that's all you gotta do. I will say the interface always throws me off. I'm always looking everywhere but the lower right-hand corner.
Yes, it's done that to me a few times. All right, I'll just call this bucket Livestream. There we go, we've got a bucket.
Yeah,
and we've got a comment from Russell in the chat saying, cool product, database backup, save careers.
That indeed is true. Also, hi to Jeff Lindsay. I saw him wave earlier.
Yeah, we got a wave too. Okay, so we've created our bucket, and now we want to create a SQLite database. Do you have any tips for the people watching on tooling that you use for working with SQLite, or do you just keep it pretty generic with the CLI?
I keep it pretty generic. We do have like a tips and caveats section inside of the Litestream website that gives some tips for just running it with different settings and how they can kind of affect and help things, just from more of an application development standpoint, more than anything with Litestream. But for the most part, it just kind of works, especially if you're in wall mode. That helps a ton, and you get great like concurrency, or read concurrency with that. So I've gotten just crazy performance, honestly, with just writing. I write everything Go, like web apps and everything.
Yeah.
Go web apps with a SQLite backend. You have no latency, like per query latency. So I typically, can run several queries, render HTML, and get it all back in, 50 microseconds. So it's pretty snappy.
Yeah, I guess because if it's in wall mode, right? Does that mean everything runs in memory to a certain degree? So you're never actually really touching the disk until snapshot?
You naturally get a lot of in-memory stuff anyway. It has a bit of a cache inside of SQLite. I think it uses mmap as well. So you kind of get the OS page cache as well. But the wall stuff is, it basically has different versions of your data. The different pages might have different versions. So, a transaction started, at first, or at one point in time has its own view of the database, and another one can start later on before that other one finishes and get a different, snapshot of the database. So it really helps with that.
Nice. I guess if you also throw some NVMe disks on this, it's probably going to give you a nice performance.
That can't hurt, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's export our variables.
Also, just with the stuff you're doing right now, we're just creating a database that has a list of fruits in there. And we basically want to replicate this database out to Litestream, and you can kind of see how quickly it will give you the new version of that, just kind of in the background. You don't really even have to think about it. And then you can kind of restore that easily as well.
Yeah, so we've just got a simple create table, insert a couple of fruits. Can I just drop out of this now? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we've got that.
Oh, actually.
And there's a DB. You see, I sensed doubt
there
in your voice.
Sorry. Stay in the database there. One thing is it should be fine actually, but you're going to have multiple windows running to kind of really see it.
How do I use the database?
I think if you hit Command D, I think it'll exit you out.
So can I just do a select?
Or Control D.
All right, okay, yeah. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't lost.
Sorry. I see what you're saying. There's only one database with SQLite.
Oh yeah, because it's SQLite and it's a fail. All right, okay.
I will say one other nice thing about SQLite that people don't think about is you can get like actual tenant isolation. Like you can put a tenant per database file, and that works totally fine. So there's a lot of cool little things you can do that you wouldn't really think of naturally, I would say.
Nice. All right, let's get one more of these running, and we copy. Oh no, I did copy something, but I've lost it. Oh yeah, the token. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our Litestream. Let me zoom in on that a bit more. Our Litestream command. We just call replicate.
You're missing an L. I think you're missing the L at the beginning. There you go. Just want to make sure you copy the whole thing. I get those little copy all buttons on the docs. It's killing me.
Those are really handy, definitely.
Yeah.
I always do that to everyone I have on this show. Like, every time there's a mistake, I guarantee you it is my fault for some reason or another. See, one of the other things that I really do on the show that I'm starting to hate myself for is that I use temp directories for everything, and now I'm no longer in a temp directory. Now I can either download Litestream again, or I can very quickly find it. This is one of those moments where I need to stop using temp directories. There we go. Yeah, we still got our fruits. I should still have my exports. I also use per directory history, which I love and then hate on this stream as well. So, all right, I'm just going to type this from memory because it's so intuitive and easy to use. But replicate fruits.db s3 localhost 3000.
So we're actually going to put almost Litestream.localhost. So you're going to put the bucket name before localhost and then dot.
You sure?
I think so. I could be wrong.
I think you're wrong. I know you're the author of the software, but I'm just going to go out there and say it. I think you're wrong. Damn it. So is that something?
Yeah, so there's two parts. There's the bucket. How was that? Go ahead.
I mean, I've never seen like wildcard DNS aliases in that way for localhost. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're just using the URL kind of to pull all the data together, kind of all the connection info together. It's really more of a connection string than anything. And typically it makes probably more sense when you have like an actual S3 bucket, where the S3 buckets are typically referenced as S3:// and then just the name of the bucket. So it's a little bit hacky for Minio, to be honest.
Well, that looks successful.
Yeah. So it starts off like it'll give you. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go for it, man.
Yeah, so it starts off just saying it's replicating and kind of gives you the database or databases that you're replicating, where they're going to, and then how often it's going to sync. So by default, it syncs every 1 second. And there's some talk about generation in here. A generation is just basically when you have a snapshot and then kind of a contiguous set of wall pages after that. So you can get in a situation where, say, you stop your Lightstream process, but your application keeps going, and then you start it back up again. Your other process may have already checkpointed that data and kind of gotten rid of it, and Lightstream would have lost its place. And Lightstream will just detect that automatically. And generations are just kind of where it can kind of start over. It'll re-snapshot, and then just keep replicating from there.
Very cool. So let's just go back to, we've got our manual browser open. So I just want to kind of see the thing. There we go. And there's the generations you were kind of talking about. And we've got our snapshot, we've got our write ahead log. So, I mean, we're pretty happy that this is working, right? So
yeah, so far so good.
If I insert more throughs, we're going to see a bit of activity on the Lightstream side. Is that pushing more stuff up?
No, it's not. It doesn't log excessively. It typically logs in kind of major events, like snapshots and then errors. Right. So it tries to keep the log relatively light. Otherwise, you probably get a lot of activity. So, but I mean, it probably would be worth adding an option to make that more verbose.
Well, I am going to. Oh, my computer is just not happy with me today at all. There we go.
Are you jumping back?
I should just. If I could use Linux for streaming, I totally would. Things just work on Linux, and I never thought I'd say that. But all right, let's add.
Well, everyone agrees with you on that.
No, definitely not. Peach. What color is a peach? Peach color? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like peach.
Okay, so what is the best way, for people that are playing with Lightstream? You've mentioned that there's not maybe a lot of logging coming out here. Like, is there any way for them to just check that the replication is happy and working? Or if there's no errors, is that thumbs up, you're good to go have a beer?
Yeah, so generally thumbs up if there's nothing going on in there. It's kind of like a constant loop that's running. that's checking and kind of uploading stuff. One thing you can do, there is some stuff from the, actually, if you jump in, I guess another window, I don't know if you got room for one more.
Always got room for more terminals.
There you go. And then I don't know if you're back at the same temp directory that you were before.
Yep.
All right, cool. So yeah, if you just type Lightstream and hit enter, it'll show you some commands. So yeah, if you can, so yeah, it's a little bit small, but so there's kind of three basic commands outside of, so there's replicate and restore, which is where you kind of push out your data, and then restore brings it back and kind of recreates it. The other ones are databases, generations, and snapshots. Databases will list the databases you have if you're using a config file, which is kind of more the recommended format, you're not just kind of playing around with it. And then generations and generation snapshots and wall are the other ones to kind of see the state of your actual replica information. So if you do Lightstream generations and then put in the name of your database or just a local path here, yeah, hit enter. Oh shoot, it's the put in the replica URL. So the s3:// and then Lightstream localhost 9000 and slide, yeah, like that. I don't know why it's taking so long. It usually is pretty snappy.
Oh,
it's because you don't have credentials in there. That's right.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, so that'll show the lag on there. So right now it's 2 minutes and 19 seconds, which is the last time that's when you put the peach row in there. But if you add another fruit in there and then run your generations command again, then that lag should drop.
I mean, I'm feeling pressure. Pineapple. There we go.
And actually, before you do that, if you run it, you can run that generations command on a watch. If you want to see it return immediately. And you can even go pretty low. Oh, there you go.
Again,
Always going to happen.
my fault for not for breaking my computer. Honestly, I'm gonna regret this every day for the next month. I'm just always going to find that one little thing that never works. Yeah, no, I was happy with pineapple as my choice there too. What's your thoughts on pineapple on a pizza, Ben? People want to know.
Oh no, that's sacrilege. I do cheese pizza. Like, I'm vegetarian, so I don't do meat, but I'm pretty simple, to be honest.
All right, okay. Cheese pizza.
All right, so yeah, what's that?
Cheese pizza that is cheese all around.
Yeah. So if you enter that in there, then pretty quickly it should show the lag drop down. So now it's down to 1 second, 2 seconds. So it's grabbing the kind of the last time out of the wall file that's up there on menu.
All right, I'm going to pick the color first and then try and think of it through.
Okay.
Red. Damn it.
Good idea. Cherry.
Good catch.
That's why we pair.
It's pretty quick. No,
yeah, it's snappy. Yeah. It's usually about a 1 second delay, so you'll usually see it sub-second.
I'm curious. Is that 1 second? Is that arbitrary? Is that something that you've picked as part of the code? I mean, could people get that lower if they wanted, or is that just a sensible default?
Yeah, there's kind of a trade-off between kind of that time to push out. It's not even really a performance issue for Litestream, because it can usually check pretty quickly about the underlying data. You could drop it lower. Usually the issue is that you get charged, I think it's like 5/10,000ths of a cent or something like that every time you do a post up to S3, which is pretty cheap. And if you're running just a constant stream of writes to your database, then dropping it below 1 second can start getting expensive. It used to actually be 10 seconds was the default, but people usually don't have a constant stream of writes to the database. So it seemed like a sensible default, dropping down to 1.
And is that configurable if I wanted it on a minute or even 10 minutes or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That totally works.
Nice.
And then it'll actually kind of stop it'll cut off your wall and kind of restart it automatically every minute. So you get that, like your point in time recovery is kind of determined by that kind of how often it restarts that wall. Just because you can only have a certain granularity to replay into.
Okay. I also noticed
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so. I'm kind of curious, like the SQLite commands that I executed were just, there was nothing that told it to use the wall. So is that just something you get for default? Or because you mentioned, I think you said at the start, it had to be enabled that way. Can you maybe elaborate on that?
Sure, yeah. So Litestream automatically will put it into wall mode if it's not in wall mode, which was a decision I was kind of back and forth on. But honestly, it's usually the recommended mode to run in, with a few exceptions. It's usually if you have, like, a lot of people will use SQLite as kind of a file format, so because it stays in a single file. If you really want it to just be that single file, then you can use their other journaling modes. But wall will have kind of 2 separate files it'll work with, but it provides a lot of concurrency support. It's way faster. There's a lot of big benefits to it. So it just automatically triggers it into wall mode, and
so
that persists across processes. Yeah.
So that means if I have an application that's been using SQLite for years, I don't really need to convert or do anything. Like when Litestream kicks in, it's just going to go, "Hey, you should be in wall mode now," and it does its thing.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people actually just put this onto all kinds of different existing applications without that application knowing anything about it. So I've seen like ghost blogs. I've seen a bunch of people do that. I think I just saw somebody do it with WordPress. They can use the SQLite version, and it just kicks in. They deploy it in like a little Docker container and everything. So it's kind of cool. Some people actually run this. Like I usually recommend running with the persistent disk just to get additional durability guarantees. But some people run Litestream with just an ephemeral disk, and they just go crazy, and it seems to work. So I'm not that brave.
Yeah, lots of stuff to experiment with there. I've already got a few ideas running through my head, like, I could just like a RAM disk and go a bit crazy with that. But
no, yeah, you can if you want. Again, there's like kind of that window of data loss. where if you had a persistent disk, it would be fine. I mean, technically, Lightstream will flush out changes when it powers down or when it shuts down cleanly. So generally, it should work actually to run on an ephemeral disk, but I'm just super paranoid.
So we got one more question. We've got a question in the chat. We'll tackle in a second, but something else popped in my head, and if I don't ask it now, I forget. But let's say I've got my application, it's using SQLite, I add Lightstream, it does some stuff, I shut down Lightstream, forget to start it, write some data to my SQLite, and then restart Lightstream. Is Lightstream okay with that?
Yeah, that'll be great. It'll just pick up where it'll notice that the wall's changed. Especially if it's been running long enough and enough writes go through. Then it'll sense that that wall is kind of restarted and it needs to start a new generation, and I'll just pick that up automatically. And it cleans out the old generations based on retention, so you actually still have that old version of your data, even though there's kind of that gap of time where Lightstream wasn't replicating up.
Nice. I like that a lot. Okay, let's tackle Rio's question then, which I promise you I've not paid anyone to ask, but Rio is asking, would this work with SQLite and K3s?
That was a fantastic question.
It is a fantastic question. Do you want to tackle that?
I'll let you answer that one.
All right, okay.
No, I think you're the expert on this one.
I actually, Rio, spent a good few hours experimenting with just that. One of my fascinations at the moment is Cluster API, which uses Kubernetes in a weird way, essentially like a database, and K3s with SQLite and Kine. I thought would be a really cool way to hook Lightstream up to that replicate S3. So hopefully the exact same use case that you're talking about. And the answer is yes. It worked perfectly. I didn't even need to do anything other than read the documentation, run Lightstream, and it just worked. I have had Cluster API running for days. I've shut down the machine, spun it back up, and things just worked. So that is a 100% yes on K3s and Lightstream. Okay, let's jump back over to our CLI. We don't have too long left, so we'll run through just a couple more things, I think.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I guess you can run through the restore. That probably makes sense.
Yes. Do you want to cover anything else in these subcommands? Because we were
sure. Sure, yeah. I mean, the snapshots in the wall are just going to list out the little snapshot up regularly, just a full database at a certain point in time. And then the wall, you can see all the little individual files that have been pushed up. But generally, you only need those for debugging if you have issues or just kind of want to see some stats. But 9 times out of 10, you're really looking at restore and replicate, and then running generations if you just want to see the lag of replication.
Okay, so let's do a restore. I'm assuming the getting started guide is probably going there anyway, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Restore. So why don't we I can just close Lightstream, delete the fruits DB, and then trigger a restore. I'm just looking
so you have to keep Lightstream keep Lightstream running, and then run the restore in a separate window. Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, I was going to delete the fruits.db and then run a restore to pull it back down. Are you suggesting something else?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I was suggesting restoring it to a different location.
Ah, okay. All right, let's do it your way. So we're going to do restore. Oh yeah, we've got this output flag, so we can say fruits2.db. My very imaginative naming, and then Lightstream localhost. I mean, this is. I'm confused. I need to work this out. Lightstream.localhost. I know I'm coming back to this, but it's not sitting right in my head. Is that something Lightstream is doing to work out the bucket name, or is that actually something that is a convention on computers? Because I'm a little bit shocked.
No, it's kind of a hacky way of getting Minio to work on the command line, or like with a single URL. So the URL references is kind of just a locator for where it's replicating to.
Okay.
So it notices that there's a localhost reference in there, and then it extracts everything before that to be the bucket name.
Okay, got it. That means I'm not going to lose any sleep tonight now, because I was definitely worried about losing sleep before.
No, yeah. Because there's a couple things like other services like I think it's either DigitalOcean or Linode or Backblaze. Like they use some convention where they use um, subdomains as your bucket. So with that kind of stuff, kind of follows that same convention, but here it's really more of a hack. So that's
Okay.
it.
So we can run
Oh,
this.
actually,
Sorry, you go.
before you run that, I would add a dash V at the beginning. Yeah, just you can get a little more information. It's just verbose logging, so you can see what's going on. Yeah, so runs pretty fast, but yeah, basically pulls a snapshot down and it puts it in like a temp location next to the file where it's going to go to. It'll download the WAL files in parallel and then apply them in order as they come through. And then finally, once everything's applied and the database is in the state it's supposed to be in, then is when it finally renames it to the final destination. So you don't get, it's kind of like an atomic restore. So you're never going to get like a partially restored database and you're in the location you want to go to, or the destination path. So that's what it's doing there.
Okay, so we should now have DB2.
Yeah, got Hertz 2. Yeah, so you can SQLite into that now. Should be all there.
And there it is.
Yeah, Cherry Red. There you go.
Software just shouldn't be this easy to use.
I honestly like a big, like I really try to focus on just narrowing the feature set to just like the simplest. Like if there's anything moderately complex, I just wait to try to implement that until I can find a simple way to do it. But I don't want people to have to read through like pages and pages of docs and like figure out weird concepts or debug things. It's mainly because I don't want to debug issues. But really, it's just essentially it's just a snapshot and there's a series of WAL pages that it's saving. So if you think about it logically like that, it's a lot easier to think about.
Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty sweet. Like, hopefully, the people that are watching, you can see just how easy it is to connect Litestream to SQLite. The backup process took us less than a few minutes. The restore process was even faster. And then I guess at that point, as long as you've got an S3 compatible storage that you trust, like S3, GCS, anything like that, you got a pretty sweet SQLite production resilient database setup. What more could people ask for?
Exactly. That's what I'm always saying.
All right.
But yeah, no, I think it's honestly a great way. People can. I think SQLite is really a great database. Like, I think people should definitely consider for production use cases. And I think the way that I think about it personally isn't like, should I use SQLite, but more like, I kind of default with SQLite as kind of the database I want to use. It's just a lot easier to develop with and test with. And then I kind of, if there's a reason to use something different, like Postgres, then I'll use that. But I kind of default with SQLite personally.
Yeah, and definitely something that's a lot more appealing to me these days. I'm quite deep into the cloud native Kubernetes ecosystem now, and storage is still the biggest pain point there, because you're having to either learn new database technologies that are built to be replicated by default, or you're trying to shoehorn this kind of behavior in, or really get that tight feedback loop with backup and restore and minimize that. You talked about it, the checkpoint snapshot in time, but minimize that window of where really bad things can happen. And SQLite's a really nice way where I can just have a file on a disk, use Litestream as a sidecar container, have it replicating and backing up to somewhere that I trust and I don't have to manage. I'm happy to pay the whatever cents it is per meg for that, or gig. It's just really exciting. And then you talked about future stuff, and you're like, oh, well, you should be able to have live read-only replicas of this data as well. So not only have I got my application running with SQLite, but I've got scalable copy of it to a certain degree with the read replicas. So
and also on the replication side, on the replication side, like, it's not even just necessarily you have a ton of writes, but I don't know if you ever looked at like Jamstack, where people will generate out all their pages as static content and put them on CDNs. So you get super low latency at the edge, but it really works well as like an edge database. If you want to have a server, in the US, but you also have another replica in Europe and Asia, wherever you want. where those those people are getting those super low latency queries as well.
I just had an idea, and you're going to hate it or maybe love it. I'm not sure now. But can Litestream compile to WASM?
I haven't tried it yet, but maybe. I'm not sure what the Seago support is and Go for WASM, but it'd be worth a shot. Probably. I might be able to swap out the SQLite or implementation for like SQL.js or something.
Yeah, I wonder if you could compile it to WASM, have a web interface for modifying static data that actually replicates it in the browser to an S3 compatible store. I think that would be really nice. Why? Well, why not?
Future version.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, we got a couple more comments from Rio there. So that was exactly my use case I was thinking of. Hopefully you mean cluster API. If so, that's really cool. I'll share links to the videos where I actually got that working. And another one about the localhost thing. Apparently Star.localhost does work on Linux, at least. Are they safe on Fedora? I've been adding entries to a host file for no reason then for years. So I'm going to be playing with that later.
Nice.
Is there anything that we didn't cover from a documentation that you want to run through before we wrap up for today?
No, I don't think so. The only thing I would say is, we have a pretty active Slack community. If anybody has questions or needs help getting up and running, drop on there, and we're happy to help. Obviously, GitHub if you want to post issues. And then I do an office hours every Friday too. So if anybody ever wants to chat live, I'm happy to chat. So just hit me up. You can find the link on the website as well. All right, and I'm Ben B. Johnson on Twitter, so you can usually find me there too.
Yes, there is the Slack link here. Get involved. Oh, there's a big button here too. Yeah, go do that.
Well, I had the office hours. I took out anyway, well, just hit me up. We can office hours it.
We'll join the Slack, and Ben will share the office hours link with you as well, I'm sure.
There you go. There you go.
Definitely. Your Twitter handle is on the screen. Definitely fun to follow you and see all the weird, silly things you're doing with databases. I used to say silly. Now it's borderline genius, I think, to a certain degree. Thank you.
It's a fine line, I think.
All right. Well, thank you very much for working on Litestream. I'm already seeing so many different applications for it. Cluster API is the one I'm really focused on right now, but maybe I'll get some time to stream some WASM stuff with it and see if we can do something stupid there too. But thank you so much awesome, for joining me today, guiding us through this and sharing your experience. Any last words?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. No, thanks for having me on. It's been great. I'm glad everything seemed to just work, so that's awesome. And happy to chat. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, have a great day. I'll speak to you again soon. And thanks for watching, everyone.
Cool.
Bye.
Have a good one.